Hi, it's Nancy with Garden Scroll, and I'm going to take you for another scroll in the garden. I have one video on YouTube, and this will be my second one. Today is November the 21st. Happy Thanksgiving. So we've already had our Thanksgiving mainly, and so today I'm trying to get another post on for you, and I'm going to go back to where I left you before. And that first video that I put on, the pictures were from, I think I said September, and that's right, some of them were the end of July, and then some of them, I think I kind of skipped over August and went to September, but it'll be pretty much in order. Not exactly, but I told you that on the first video. So, but they will be very close. I'm trying to get it back to where I left you, and then go on. And as you can tell, it's all gone. It's all brown and yucky looking. Some of it covered up for the winter. But we're going to get back on track here and get you back to some of the fall. When I left you in the fall, we were in the grand finale of the garden, what I considered the grand finale. And as it turned out, we did get an early freeze. I was hoping we would just get a light freeze and then go on and have beauty for the rest of the season, but as it turned out, that was the rest of the season pretty much. So, but I did get lots done, and I'll show you that. We'll go from gathering in the plants, doing the harvest, and we'll see how far we get on our scroll today. Hi, it's Nancy, and today I was out. Well, actually we got some rain, 2 3/10 inch rain, which has been wonderful. But the sun is shining today, and a bunch of my zinnias and celotias they fell over because they got heavy with the rain, and so I needed to trim them either back or pull them out, some of them. But before I did, of course, I had to take zinnias for seeds for next year. Aren't these beautiful? It's September the 28th, 2018, and I wanted to talk about the garden for a little bit because it'll soon be gone. Hopefully, I'm hoping we'll have all of October and at least part of November. All of it would be fine with me before the cold takes the garden totally away. But I've just been thinking about so many changes in the garden, so many changes, like this little pot right here, this container. If you look back on it and just see how scraggly looking it was all through the summer. And that's another thing, the summer was so hot that I didn't think we could make it through it, and there was just a considerable amount of it had turned things brown. Things were just not totally dead, but some of the leaves were actually, probably a few of the things did die. I'm sure they did, some of the petunias and different things. But oh, here's the banana plant, which didn't really get very tall this year, but it's looking good today. And just how things change so shortly, like you think it's going to be so hot you can't even stand it, and then all of a sudden it changes to cool, and you don't know if it's going to just go to frost like it did last year. It went to a frost, and it just took everything, all the annuals out of the equation for fall. But I'm hoping we get to see them and enjoy them. I'm actually hoping some of the hibiscus will still bloom this year, but if they don't, I'm hoping to keep them through the winter, which I've already told you that I'm not good at keeping house plants. I'm just not. I try, and I'll try again, because I can't stand to just see them die without even trying. but I hope I can keep them. But so many changes, and so much going on right now, and you just want to enjoy it. Just when you look back and see, here's your sign of fall too, this little spider right here, not so little spider, but there he is, doing his little web. I'm not particularly scared of spiders, but one of my daughters is. I'm going to take this little web down a bit where I can walk by there without disturbing him too much. And just takes a little bit more look. There are several things I wanted to discuss, and just to look back and think how small these things all started, and now they're at their fullness. I've been thinking about maybe having a little event for like a garden tour for fall's grand finale, because this is fall's finale when everything, look at this beautiful black elephant ear. It didn't get very big, and that's another thing I wanted to point out was this. Look at this leaf right here. This is gyp. In our water we have a little bit of gyp, which ends up making all the foliage turns a little bit of a white color. This one is a newer one where I didn't have the water on it so much. It doesn't really get on it just hand watering it that much, but when you have to start the sprinkler, it really does. This little foxtail fern has grown for me this year, which is amazing to me. I love this little plant. Anyway, I put it in a larger pot, and it's really taken off and gone, and I hope it will make it through the winter too and come back out. This beautiful hibiscus, hosta right here, it totally died out from the snails, and then I put coffee and coffee grounds on it, and it came back from the root. They didn't totally destroy the root. You can tell there's one right there. Probably, I'm pretty sure that's probably what's taken that one little leaf, or taking it out. And it did this little one back here too. And again, I tried stopping it with the coffee grounds, and I think it has helped, although it still took a lot of it out. This plant right here is oh gosh, now I'm not thinking of it. I'm going to have to come back to this one to tell you what that is. I'm not thinking of it right now. But it's has a Esperanza, there we go. It's a Esperanza, and it has a pretty yellow trumpet flower on it when it blooms. Speaking of pretty yellow flowers, let me go right over here to this one, which is trying to close up, but isn't that pretty? It's been so pretty today, these bright, pretty colors. And then also wanted to say about first let's go over here to this one right here. It's a coleus, and isn't that a beautiful color? And it did so well. Of course, it's not the only one of the coleuses that are beautiful. This one is also a very pretty color, and of course you can't hardly beat just the redhead coleus. It's always outstanding in the garden. I have to come down here and get some of this beautiful diamond frost euphorbia. Isn't that pretty? There's another pretty coleus beside it with the purple heart. And then I wanted to go back here because these are my begonias, my Rex begonias. Before I do, since this is right in front of it, let's go to this. And this is a annual butterfly plant, and it's been really pretty this year too. I'm hoping that I can save some seed from some of it, but the caterpillars have been eating it right up, and so I'm not sure. But what I was going for is this beautiful Rex begonia. It's even blooming for me. We're supposed to get down to maybe 47 tonight, so I've considered taking them in, but I'm not ready to take them in yet. And then here's another one. This is Polymer Prince. Isn't it pretty? I know it's just green, but look at those shades of green and those curly leaves. Aren't they beautiful? I can't remember the name of this pretty little plant right beside it, but that's also those pretty pink and green and white veining. That's a really pretty plant too. Another one I'm not sure of the name of is this one right here, and it almost died when I took it in. I had no idea it would get this pretty this season. And then right behind it there is another one of my Rex begonias, which I love. This is called Autumn Embers. This is a tiny little one, but I'm hoping it'll live and continue to grow and maybe next year be big and beautiful. This is a silver begonia, and it's also a pretty little begonia. I think I'm falling for the begonias this year, or have been for, well, ever since my first one lived through the winter, which I tried several of them before and did not get them to live through the winter. But last year I did, and I think I did even for 2 years now. So that's been an encouragement to me, and I love them. They're so pretty. This little plant right here is a mosquito shoe geranium, but it's in the more of a blue-green color or lighter green. But I love both of them, even the old standard one, which I have somewhere. I'm not sure right now where it is, but if I come across it, I'll try to point that out to you too. But they smell, to me, they smell very good. I like that citronella scent. But there it is, that blue-green one, in with those marigolds. Isn't that pretty? And here's one of the hibiscus that I got from Logie's, which I got a lot of my hibiscus from Logie's. They're just so pretty. I love them. Let me take this one right here off because it's a spent one. There's a chrysanthemum right there that hasn't opened yet, and I forget what colors they all are, so it's always a surprise for me. And this is a pretty yellow marigold. And this one will be another chrysanthemum that I'm not certain what color is right at the moment. This is my seed box. As you can tell, I do have some more of the annual butterfly plant in here, and I very much hope to get this as a staple in my garden to come back every year from seed. And these are the beautiful Magellan salmon pink zinnies. I love those too, and I will save every one of these probably for seed for next year. There's just so much to do. Well, always. I know you probably, if you listen to any of the little clips, you hear me say that all the time, enough that you probably would get tired of it. But there is, at any given season, there is. This is probably my favorite season because actually it's pretty enough, it's cool enough without being too cool, and I can actually enjoy it some. And by this time I'm desperately needing to just enjoy it some, because the workman is worthy of his hire, and it's such a job. It is a tremendous job just to keep it alive through the summer, the heat of the summer. Not only to keep it alive, but to keep myself alive during that hot heat. It's just kind of sad to think about it soon gonna all be gone, but it's also amazing just to think about it being in its grand finale when everything is full. I know there are so many different seasons, like when you first start out, and just the colors of the forsythia, the tulips, the daffodils, all the pretty spring bulbs. And then when you see the peonies or peonies, however you say that, coming on, and all their beautiful, glorious, huge blooms of color, and then just the June. Always think of June as about being all about the daylilies, because they're just coming on one right after another, and you just get so many different colors, so many surprises, and you think it's about over, and then they'll start blooming again. I actually have some that may bloom this fall, because some of them are like the ones that bloom in the spring and in the fall, so we may actually still get some of those still too. And then of course in July, the big beautiful heads of the tall phlox, the crepe myrtles bloom out, and just so many blessings in the garden, so much beauty in the garden that you just can't help but enjoy some of it. But then, like I say, during those, usually here in Oklahoma, we have it starts getting hot early, and just sometimes intensifies to the point that it is such an extreme struggle. It was this year for me, even though it was not as hot, and we did get a few rains, more than we've gotten in previous years. But even at that, it was struggle. Maybe because I'm also getting older, but for whatever reason, it was very hard for me this year to stay out in the heat and take care of the garden. Plus, whenever you're doing it, like, you don't have a day off. You absolutely don't. No Saturday off, no Sunday off. The only time you get off is when you get a rain and God waters the garden for you. And I was going to say, and then in the fall, when it actually puts on its grand finale, even though some of those things are gone, the flowers that have held on are at their fullest, even just like the coleus. I've clipped this one several times and took several cuttings from it to put in bare spots, and it still looks gorgeous. And then over here we have the pretty chocolate plant, which is a dark green, and it does have a little bit of like almost a brown color to it at some time. And then in the fall, like right now, it's beginning to have these pretty white tufts on them. I talk about these if you've listened to any of the previous posts in the year. You will see that I talk about this, because I can't help but think of these beautiful white tufts when I see it, even in its just the foliage form. And up above it there, I'll point out again too, is the seed heads of the autumn, the sweet autumn clematis, which is just a billow of white when the flowers are on. But even the seed heads of the clematis are very pretty. There's another one of the elephant ear caladiums that did really well for me this year. It's looking good there. Lots of things. Another thing I need to do soon will be to take in the house plants. I always take them outside when it gets when the weather gets good enough for them to be out early in the spring. As soon as it's not too cold for them, I bring them out, simply because I do much better with outside plants than I do with inside plants. So I always think that it's because God's helping me out here. He's kind of got the control of it out here. But isn't all this just so beautiful? And there's another mum right there that I'm not sure what color it will be either. I think it might be yellow, but I'm not. And here's some of the beautiful Zahara zinnies right here. I call them container zinnies because they're not too terribly tall. These look like they may be about 12 inches tall. Sometimes they're not even that tall, but they have a big full bloom. Sometimes these blooms are even bigger than just your normal regular height zinnies are. So these are definitely going to be a favorite. I'll put them like in front borders and always in pots. They look so good in pots. I can't just pass up saying something about these beautiful impatiens too. Aren't they beautiful? And you'll have to look back and see how they started. Such a small little plant. I had trouble with snails and roly-polies, and sometimes they can just take my impatiens right out, and I did have to replace a few of them. But as you can tell, these just went right on and kept right on going. And there's a few of the pretty lipstick pink ones back there, which is one of my favorites. I love them all. I think there was one over here I wanted to show you too, that it didn't do as well for me as it has sometimes in the past, but this is just one of my favorites. When you put the pink impatiens with this watermelon or rose colored coleus and put those two together, and they just look gorgeous. I was wanting to be sure, I think I even said so, I'm sure I did in one of my posts, that I wanted to show that to you. Lots of times I can get it prettier than this. It just kind of scattered out there instead of making a big grouping, but it's still very pretty, and definitely pretty enough that you get the idea of what it would look like. I'm going to go to the back pretty soon. I did want to show you just a little bit up here, these pretty pots, that they were so small, and this one little pot is torn up, and I've got to replace that next year. But once I was tired and already had something in it, and I just went with it. It actually turned out quite cute. And then this little pot, I like it because I like the red. I just really am fond of the red. There's some more that I'll need to bring inside. And then these two pots here, the one with the begonia in it. And usually these shine the most in the fall. For some reason they just get larger, put on their fall display also, and look brighter and prettier. And this little plant or little pot had so many different things in it, and because things would die out of it, I had a beautiful calabrachoa in here at one time, and it died. And then just recently my verbena, it was a beautiful pink and white verbena. Some of those will be in some of the posts too, but just recently I put some of this pretty little coleus in it, and if we have time, it'll probably grow up to look very pretty too, but we may not. It just depends on how the weather does and how long the frost stays away and we get our beautiful fall weather.